Bob.
And this is the Board Game Rundown. Today, we have a topic for you, and it is a special one because we're here. As you can see, there's only two of us, so I'll actually preface it also by saying no crazy camera angles today, just the one camera, because we don't need to be cutting back and forth when it's literally just us two people fitting in frame for you guys the whole time. But we are going to talk about civilization building games is how I'll word it. I mean, there's a lot of different terms you can use for that, but that's how I'm going to word it here. What makes them, what defines them for us personally, what are some of our favorites, and at the end, what are maybe some games that some people call Civ, some don't. Bob and I will even probably argue over some of those, depending on our own personal definitions. They might line up perfectly. The video should be separated into sections so that you can go to whichever section you want to listen to most. Bob, is there anything else you want to say specifically related to this topic before we get started? He's kind of, in my group, the Civ guy.
So. Yeah, not necessarily related to this topic, but I think people should make sure that they like and subscribe and ring the bell, share the videos with your friends so they can learn about civilization games.
Hey. It's community building.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Which is one of the aspects, I think, of civilization games.
So there you go. So the first section we're going to go into here is what makes a Civ game. How do we personally define it? Also, leave a comment below how you guys define it, because this is all going to be kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of loosey-goosey, but we're going to go into our own personal opinions.
So what makes a civilization game for me? I think it needs three things mainly.
Okay.
All right. So I think for the most part, there needs to be some sort of like multiple eras or epochs, right? So like the passage of time has to happen, you know, as the, and I'm just saying like, oh, the round has changed, not that kind of passage of time. I'm saying like, okay, yeah, so we have this civilization or this little like group of people, and now it's like years later and things have developed and things are happening, and I think that's one of the key indicators for a civilization game for me. It's one of the things I do look for. One of the other things I look for is tech trees and advancement and things like that. So yes, you have your civilization and time is passing, but you're also developing that civilization and they're learning new things. They're learning how to gather resources better. They're learning how to build better and stronger things. They're improving their army if there's a lot of conflicts and things like that. So different types of advancements and progressions in that sense. I love a good tech tree. Another key aspect for me is exploration, right? Because a lot of civilization types of things, you start in a smaller area, and as you build and grow and expand, you're exploring new areas. It could be flipping new tiles over. It can be just flipping tokens over, simple things like that. Drawing new cards when you discover a new area. Those types of things that allow for the expansion of the the first original known world and development to newer types of areas and locations.
Sure. I agree with a lot of the ideas you're saying. I don't fully agree as I go into mine and this is just something I thought about a while and struggled with a while, and I am definitely in the minority if you go on Google and stuff like that, right? I don't necessarily think civilization building, or however you want to word it, inherently involves exploring.
Okay.
Like, I understand why you think it does and why it feels more natural to include in stuff. But, like, if you're actually looking at the theme of building a civilization, you can be building a civilization in your city, and you're just building up your city and trying to get your economy going and your marketing going and stuff, right? So I just don't think it inherently needs it, though I will agree it makes it better, usually, right? It adds that fourth X that makes things interesting. So I wrote two things here that are weird short sentences, but I know what I mean. The first thing I wrote was from one, many. Right? And
e pluribus unum.
Right. And what I mean by that is usually a civilization building game is you start with, one city or a farmer and a farm, and you're just like, can you survive? You know, and you survive by enhancing your technology and stuff, right? Like, well, I can't just have this one farm forever. I need two farms, but now I have two farms. I need someone to work that farm. Now that I have a worker to work that farm, I need to have the budget to pay for him. Well, now that I have a budget to pay for him, I need people to pay taxes. Well, now we have more people, we need houses. Well, now we have more houses and people, we need more farms, right? And it's this constant growing that starts with nothing. And that's why RTS games and a lot of civilization games, Empire Earth, Age of Empires and all those usually start with, here's your city, and you have like two workers and a scout or something, right? What can you do? And so the mentality of from one many, I think, is a big part for me in the idea of civilization building, which just makes sense thematically, I think, right? And then the other kind of weird thing I wrote was zoom out and in, right? And what I mean by that is usually in a civilization building game to me, you are an overlord. You're almost looking down on it like a god, and you have to control your civilization, right? You have this sprawling city on this map and doing all these things. Again, not necessarily a map, but just thematically, you're growing this big city. But then also, usually Civ games, you'll also focus in on each individual worker and what that worker's doing, and this worker's on that farm. That does not matter in the grand scheme of things, but it matters to that worker, and then their their food and what they're doing does then matter on the large scale, right? And so it has this interesting balance of, looking over one of my favorite old RTS games, again, just because old RTS video games tend to really nail this home. They were very popular for a long time. I cannot remember which one it was. I think it was one of the Age of Empires, but you would be playing, right, and you'd control your guys, you'd spawn your guys in, and then during battle, you could click on any one of your soldiers, and it would zoom in, and you would then be in control of that guy like you were playing a third-person video game, right? And you could be like, doing all the things and fighting and blocking and all this stuff, and then you could zoom out and back to overview and like micromanage, and then you could zoom into a different soldier and stuff like that, right? They might have only been able to be leaders. I wasn't
sure,
I don't
like
remember.
commanders or whatever,
right? I don't exactly remember, but that idea really lends itself to the idea of civilization building. You have to think like a government, but you can't just ignore your people at the same time. Like, they all matter, right? Those are like the two big things for me that thematically lead into it. And then I do agree that a civilization building game is going to have an advancement of technology. That does not mean you need to go from Stone Age to laser beams, right? But there needs to be some kind of advancement here, because otherwise, are you building anything, right? They're just tangents, So I do agree that that's going to play a big part. And again, exploring to me is not necessarily, like, it's thematically necessary, but I don't think it's mechanically necessary.
Sure, and I guess I can see what you're saying. Like, you could have like a big metropolis, and it's almost like a Sim City or something like that, where you are kind of like just building that one city. You're not so much exploring. I mean, maybe you're exploring on the outskirts of the town to expand it a little bit, but you're not like, oh, let's go way over there and see what's in the woods. Right,
exactly, yeah. So that's just part of my thing. And again, we're very interested in what you guys say and how much you guys disagree with us, because it is really up in the air. At the end of the day, a civilization building game is just a game where you're building a civilization, right, by definition. But then where does that definition come from is the interesting part. So so next, Bob, now that we've kind of talked about what we think of it, we're going to go into some games that are I don't know what you would call like highlights in this field to us, games that we really think nail the feeling, some of our favorites, and we'll probably talk about some games we haven't played as well. I'm sure Bob has a lot written down. I'll tell you right now, the reason I'm deferring to Bob a lot for this is because I have 4 games written down, and some of them you guys will argue. So I am not big in this in board game form yet. I just haven't been able to. They're very time consuming.
They are time consuming.
They tend to be a little expensive because they're so sprawling, and I just haven't been able to really fully dive in yet, just dip my toes. But I have a lot of history from video games. I mean, Empire Earth was one of my favorite video games growing up. I loved that game, and I didn't even know what that was, like what that genre was back then. I was just like, I start with stone, But yeah, so we're going to go into some of our favorite games, and I'm actually going to defer to Bob first.
It all started for me.
Back in my day.
Sid Meier, love him. Civilization, the board game. Now, it's not the original OG one, because I had one a long time ago that I hadn't played.
And this is your whole Hexiverse Square thing, too.
It is. And the first one that I played was Square. It was a Sid Meier Civilization, the board game. It's by Fantasy Flight. And it is squares, but you start with one little city. You're in like the Stone Age, and you're learning like pottery and woodworking and things like that. And then you're exploring. You're running into barbarians. You're flipping over new tiles to see what resources are becoming available and whatnot. Your tech trees is super cool, because you'll start with one level 1 tech, and you have another level 1 tech, and then you can get a level 2 tech, because you can start building that tech pyramid. And I love tech pyramids and tech trees. It's going to be the ongoing theme. You're going to see it coming through here. But I love this game. But it can take a good 2-3 hours to play, especially when you're playing like a large player count. And the turns can take forever because the way it works is one person activates all of their stuff.
Right.
Next person activates all of their stuff. And if somebody's got a lot of stuff, it's going to take them a long time to get through it. But it nailed all those other things, right? The passage of time, the tech tree is awesome. The exploration is all in there. And then you also have asymmetrical player powers with the different civilizations that you could be, right? You want to be America or the Aztecs, and then depending on who you choose, it'll take some sort of thing from history to apply, to your civilization. And I love that stuff.
Right.
And after that, I started playing that so much, then I found the Civilization on the computer, and I played Civ 5. Oh my gosh, I have played so much Civ 5. It's disgusting. Don't look at my Steam account, and you'll see how many hours I've spent on that game. But yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of time. But that introduced me to the hexes, and I love hexes. It's so much more tactical, so much better. What's the hexagons or the bestigons? Is that what you're saying?
Hexagons or the bestigons.
And then they came out with a new civilization, the Sid Meier's Civilization: A New Dawn.
Right.
And that one has the hexes. There's and it's a little bit different. Like, they don't have the tech tree anymore. They did away with that, but they still have techs that you can upgrade. If some of you have played Arc Nova, the Arc Nova kind of adopted the same type of action selection that it has, where you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you have a card under each one. And then as you activate one of those cards and you perform its action, it slides down to the one, and all the rest will slide over to become more powerful. And the longer basically your civilization's working on that and getting it more powerful, and then you activate it, you get a much stronger ability out of that of that action. Yeah, so it's like, okay, yeah, you could keep building over and over again, but you're building things so quickly, it's not very strong. But if you do a bunch of other stuff and your builds up, and then you build on a 5, you can build a much better thing, like whether it's a building or a city on like a mountain as opposed to just in the plains and things like that. There's not as much combat, but there's still a lot of like exploration and like wonders and whatnot. That's kind of a neat thing, right? So in a lot of the worlds, there's a lot of like world wonders and specialty things that you can find and try to gain control of the areas and whatnot.
Yeah, well, going into that, I don't think, again, maybe in the minority here, I don't think combat is necessary
for
civ building. Like,
correct.
If your mentality is, in order to build a
civilization, we must fight.
Destroy someone else's civilization.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, you might want to see someone.
Look at history, bro.
Doesn't bode well.
Humans are the worst.
Sure. So you want to kind of pause there?
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, I guess going on your civilization thing, I'll talk about the most civilization game that I've played, like literally Sid Meier, right?
Sure.
The most Sid Meier feeling one, the most pure civ building, and the one that no one would argue on my list by far is
Yes,
Magnus Rex.
that was on my list as well.
Right. So we have had the opportunity to play Magnus Rex, which was from, I didn't write it down, Gamecrafter, I believe is the site. So Brian Lemler. I couldn't never remember if there's two L's.
Was it McDoffie Games?
McDoffer.
Yep.
Yeah, Brian Lemler from McDoffer Games. He came on the show, and we interviewed him and talked about the game. We've had a chance to play that, but that is not the reason I'm bringing it up. I'm bringing it up because it is a civilization game.
Yes. Super crunchy.
He did a lot of things really well, really crunchy. One thing that almost should be in the a civilization game needs it. Is fiddliness.
Yeah. That's got to be fiddly. If it ain't fiddly, are you really civving?
I don't know. Almost all do.
Yeah.
It's really hard to make a civ game streamlined. It's
it
because
is.
There's so much going on. It's hard to make a society streamlined.
I guess, unless you just want to be super one-dimensional.
But a couple notes I have here is that I know the starting factions were Rome, Germany, France, and England, right? Asymmetric and stuff like that. They start off with asymmetric powers at the bottom, but you can change your powers as you go through the game and replace them with other actions that you can take. It is hex-based. There are 4 ages you go through. You go ancient, medieval, industrial, and modern. And, I mean, this is a game. I'm going to try to send our editor some pictures. This is a game with just a amazing map idea. You'll see it here. So I'm going to show you a 4-player game where there's 4 quadrants. Each player starts in a quadrant, and you'll see this gorgeous map design. And one tile is the starting tile in each quadrant is flipped, and that's where they start. And as they explore, they're flipping these tiles over and gaining resources and building buildings and farming. And there's the harvest die that gets rolled to determine what you're harvesting each season to come through and everything. I mean, this is like, to me, again, from my list of games, this is the epitome of a civ building game. Like, will it be your favorite if you played it with all of them? I don't know. It's not going to feel exactly like Sid Meier stuff. And Sid Meier's has been doing it for like
a long
40
time.
years.
Yeah. So they got it all worked out.
But I will say, though, to his credit, again, I can't not mention it on something like this. He nailed it as far as theme and stuff goes. Again, it's a Game Crafter game, so you're going to get those Game Crafter type of components. That's what you know what you're getting. You know, he's not lying to you. The site shows you pictures of exactly what you're getting and describes them and everything like that. But if you like that kind of game, a longer, crunchier one, you know, you can lower the player count. It lowers the map, and that lowers the play time and all that. But I really liked it. I loved the star mechanism in that game to kind of not force, but try to recommend exploring, right? Traveling to the different star locations is a really cool idea in that one. I don't know. There's just a lot in that game. I don't know if you have more.
So I really enjoyed that one because, like you were saying, the exploring the tiles. One of my favorite things in the game is like, okay, I'm gonna go to the edge of the tile. Okay, I'm gonna explore the new tile because I want to know what's next to me. What am I finding? Are there wonders? Are there barbarians? Are there resources that I could use to take back? Is there a good place to build a city that I've been looking to build? Like that's one of my favorite things about that game is all the little tile exploration. The tiles are beautiful. Like like the whole big map that you can put out there is amazing. My biggest downside on that one is the resource die.
I know.
You randomly roll the resource die, and that's what you make. And it's like, okay, I get it. Sometimes, like, oh, we had this is what was able to grow this time, so it's kind of random. But I feel like as a leader of my civilization, I should be able to direct my people to work towards a certain goal. And so we've house ruled it to where it's like, when you produce, you can produce one thing that you want to produce, and then you roll the die, and that's the random one that everybody gets to produce because that's what grew well, or that what everybody's able to find that time. And that really helped to kind of like speed it up and help you to direct your civilization in the direction you want to go.
It also makes turn matter.
Yeah.
Right? It makes you feel important on your turn.
Correct.
Like, no, I need, I don't know which one they
like
use.
Science
iron
or iron.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I need iron. I am manufacturing iron this turn. Also, we're manufacturing
some wheat for everybody.
It's wheat season.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, that would be the thing that I correct house rule, I should say, on that one.
But yeah, obviously, a lot of you probably haven't heard of that one unless you watch our show because we've covered it. It's a smaller one, but I think it deserves to be looked at. If
you enjoy Civ games, it's a great crunchy Civ game. Right. Not streamlined like the other way we were talking because it does take a while.
Right.
Yeah, it's very fiddly. Right. Okay. So after that one, I have down Through the Ages, a new story of civilization.
Oh, the big one.
It's sort of big. It's not that big.
Sorry, I just mean like it's like a big game.
Not really.
Does it take a while to play?
Yes.
That's what I mean.
But they all do.
Sure, again, yes.
But no, this one's great because it has like a card lineup, right? And you have your era of because there's multiple eras you go through, right? And you're gonna play through each deck of each era, and then the cards come out, and they're really expensive when they first come out, and then as you buy them, and they're cheaper. Or every turn, like 2 come off at the end, everything slides, more cards get added. 2 at the end, they slide, and that keeps going on until you get through the entire era. Then you do an end of the era like wrap up thing, and then you get the era 2 cards out, and then you keep going, right? This is a great one. There's an app for it,
right?
And Tim and I play the app a lot.
That's what I was going to bring up was if Tim was on this one, that would probably be his number one.
That would probably
plays
be
the app a lot.
A lot. Yeah,
so.
it's very cool though. I dig how you like have to have a certain amount of soldiers to conquer territories that come up in the cards. Like, oh, you found an island, but it's going to take you, and you're going to like there's like a bidding and stuff that happens. You could have different like combat formats. Like, oh, if I have horses or knights or whatever and infantry, I can get a combat bonus.
Cavalry.
It depends what area you're in.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you get the jets and whatnot too, right? And then there's also like religions for culture and religion and culture, and those are great. Like I love culture victories, right? Like multiple. That'd be another thing to say: multiple paths to victory.
That's true.
A good Civ game usually has multiple ways to win. It's not just eliminate your opponent. It could be have so much culture and you just this great cultural icon of the world that you've won.
That's true.
You know, so or a science victory. Man, you develop so much science, now you get to space, so you win.
Yeah, it's something that would fall under for me the same kind of thing. I don't think it's necessary. I've played games that feel Civ-Builder that don't have it, but it definitely ups the thematic nature of the game.
Correct.
It feels more real when you have that kind of stuff. Because again, real life is like that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Yep. So that would be my next one. You want me to keep going? Or
well, I'll mention one because you said Through the Ages. So I have on here, I only played it once, but I played it with you, but I figured I might as well go with Roll Through the Ages.
Yep, I have that one on here also. Yep.
So I played the Bronze Age. I don't know if you've played both.
I haven't played both.
Okay.
The Bronze Age is the one that I own. That's the one I've played.
Right.
And like you don't necessarily like go through different ages because it's literally the Bronze Age. But there are like techs that you upgrade in your cities and you build, and it is about as streamlined as a civilization game could get.
Yes, I was going to say.
A rolling you know?
Eagle Griffin, which I know that you're a gigantic fan of.
Yep.
Matt Leacock The pandemic guy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And so this one is 1 to 4 players. Have you played it solo?
I have not.
Okay, just wondering.
Yeah.
You tend to do solo sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah, this was a nice little interesting wood components and stuff.
Wooden dice, not my favorite.
Sure. A wooden big block with you're
like
keeping
that,
track
with
of
pegs.
your resources with pegs.
Yep.
Yeah, you're rolling dice, and it almost has like a roll and write sheet,
Like a score sheet,
kind of
basically.
score
Yeah.
sheet with it that you're marking stuff off as you're getting it, and keep track of your food supply and
Yep.
stuff like that.
Plagues can happen if you
Right.
roll bad on the die. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, this was a cool small one. The problem is, I want to say, if you want a cheap one, but with all the wood components, is it? I've never looked
If you
at that.
watch their website, they run specials, and I scooped that guy up for like $15-20.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I'd say it's worth
yeah,
that
and it's totally worth that. Like a normal MSRP, I think is like $30,
Right.
and that's a little pricey
It's a little
for
much,
that
but
little
that's
box.
still not as bad as I was like because they threw so much big chunky components into
Sure,
there.
yeah, because like
I
the
was
big wooden
worried.
blocks,
Yeah.
yeah.
Each player board is a board.
Yeah, it's literally a board of wood with holes drilled in it. Yeah. But I like that. It's almost like a cribbage board or something like that. Yeah. All right.
So yeah, not too much else to talk about there, but I'm gonna try to have pictures. Bob
Yeah.
for the games that Bob owns, I'm hoping he can snag some and throw them in there. But
Yeah.
also, I'm gonna try to find some and
Yeah, I'll try to
get
like
in there.
bust out some boxes,
Right.
set some
Like,
things
I don't know
up,
if
and take
Bob will
some
have time to
pictures.
set up Magnus Rex, but
We'll see.
We'll get you
We'll
pictures.
see. Yeah, we'll see what we can do. Hopefully, maybe we can pull those out from our interview and maybe
Right,
find them
maybe.
on there. Next up is one that Patrick introduced me to, and this one was one of the most epic ones. It took about 5 hours to play.
Jeez.
But it was one of those games, though, where you could have a side game going because, like, the turns can take so long.
No.
And sometimes, like, if they're in one corner of the world and all your stuff's on the other, they're not getting to you now anyway because they don't even have sailing,
Right.
So it's like, I'm going to play this game over here.
You
let me
liked
know.
this one, huh?
I did. And I know that's the thing. I know it could take a long time, and there's a lot of time in between turns, which another one on my list is going to run into that problem also.
Yeah, I don't think it's a Civ game, but I can't remember. But there's that one game I have a huge problem with.
Yeah.
So,
We'll get
okay.
there. But no, this one is called, and I just got a reprint, History of the World.
Oh, I have. Okay. I've
Yeah.
heard of that one.
Now the old version I think looks a lot better than the new one. The art on the new one is ugly, and I don't know what is with companies. Like,
Yeah.
we should remake that game with really crappy art.
Right.
I think we could sell like 3 copies of that.
Yeah, and obviously, board game rundown, art is subjective, blah blah blah. blah but yes.
But
I
yeah,
agree.
if you compare it to like the old Avalon Hill version of it, it's and even the components are better too. So I'm glad. Like it was fun. It was funny because like I learned this. I've discovered the game when it was showed to me. I loved it. One of those Grail kind of games. I went out, finally found a decently priced copy of it,
Right.
bought it a year later, reprint.
Right, and
announced.
you were like, oh, and then
Yeah,
you saw it,
I
you're
was
like,
like,
oh,
okay, good.
made the right move.
I did. But so it's gonna start out like cradle of civilization, right? Like Mesopotamia and like the very early civilizations. And then depending on how many players, they'll give you like so many civilizations to play. And then once that epoch is it epoch or epoch? I should have like looked that up.
I always say epoch.
I always thought it was epoch too. We're gonna roll with that.
It's not epic.
It's not epic, that's for sure. Well, it is, but so once you play through that, and then like you go to the next epoch cards, and you do all the next like set of civilizations, and like the world basically keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's like one epoch where you're basically playing through all of like the feuds in China and like the Mongols and stuff coming in, and Japan coming over and fighting, and then you play through like Europe and whatnot, and then you have like the Age of Sailing, and then like it starts to open up like the new
so
world.
You're each personally changing civilizations constantly.
Yes.
And you feel that.
Yes,
and everything?
yeah, you
Interesting.
completely, and then like, and plus like whatever territories you manage to control and keep, keep control of throughout the epochs, you'll back score. You know what I mean? So like,
Right.
say like, oh, we've moved on to the China, where they have a lot of like the feuds and stuff going on, but I've managed to maintain control of my civilizations around like the Mediterranean. I'll score points and stuff for them too, as long as I've gotten them to a certain tier. Basically,
Interesting.
yeah, it's a really neat like mechanic, and like the components are super cool. I really enjoyed that one. It take a long time because we played it at 5, which is I think max. It might play 6, but it took us about 5 hours, a little over 5 hours to play.
Sure.
But man, if you got the time and you
Yeah,
like those
sounds really
games,
good.
yeah, it's super
Have
cool.
to play that sometime.
Super cool, yeah. So after that is the one that you were talking about, where it's like the problem that it ran into is
I
like
can't remember the name.
Monumental.
That's what it is.
Yep. So Monumental is another, Civ game, obviously. But the coolest thing about this one for me is the way you do the action
card
selection.
system.
Yeah. So you're kind of like doing a deck building system, and then you're laying out a grid of 3x3 cards, and you're going to pick a row and a column to activate. And then so you get to activate all those abilities in whatever order you want. Once you're done with those, you'll take those cards out and you'll deal back in from your deck the cards that are, to fill in the gaps. And then it goes to the next person. And so you'll start in your one zone, and there is some tile exploration and expanding your territories to try to, to gain more resources and to control territory. So you can build cities because we want to build wonders because wonders are worth a lot of points, but you can't build more than one wonder per city. So you have to have territories to control, to put your wonders on. But that action selection system is so unique. I hope more games start to implement it, but it's not one of those where the original Civ games where it's you take all of your actions.
Right.
You take all of your actions, and there's a lot of downtime, and people complained a lot about that.
Yeah, I had a really rough time with this one, and I'm I guess you are too, but with this group, I feel like I'm the kind of guy that I don't care about game length. People are like, oh, we can't play Twilight Imperium. That takes 6 hours. Instead, let's play 6 one-hour games. So I'm like,
sure.
That's the same thing.
Yeah,
as long as you like Twilight Imperium as much as you like those 6 games, it's the same thing to me. It doesn't matter to me at all. But with Monumental, it literally felt like, I don't know if it was accurate, hyperbolic and all that. It felt like it was 30 minutes before my turn came back around again. I think we were playing a 4-player game.
In a 4-player game, it could be 30 minutes before you get it on the turn.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Even giant games like Twilight Imperium and stuff and Dune, all
Correct.
these games that are huge, it's you're waiting a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Everyone just I took my action. That idea is terrible. And you said there was an expansion or something.
So there's a new, it was on Kickstarter, it came out, and it should be filling, hopefully, they had some manufacturers issues and, COVID and everything's messed everything up. But it's back on track now. I think it's called African Empires is the name of the expansion, something like that. But they're supposed to be fixing that because a lot of the games, like I say, we said one person taking all their actions, the next person all their actions, and there's so much downtime in between. It's going to be you take an action, you take an action, you take an action. So I think you're still going to activate all of your cards, and then you probably resolve one card, and the next person resolves a card, and that would help.
A lot,
and it could really change the dynamic.
You've seen what people
are doing.
Activate if that's how that works.
I'm not exactly
huge.
sure, so don't quote me on that. But they did say they're addressing the issue with the downtime between turns, and that's how I figured they would fix it. But we'll see what happens when it comes out.
It is also a game because I'm gonna compare it in 2 ways to Reload right here. Not that they're similar at all, but so Reload, you take all your actions, the next person, but the turns take 5 minutes.
Right, because you've got one character.
5 minutes might even be insane, right? But your turn could take 30 seconds. Depends on how much you've planned ahead and stuff, right? So when you have this giant, massive game, the designers just have to think about that. How long are people going to be sitting here? That's just crazy to me. Man, 30 minutes for a turn is just madness to me. And then the other thing is, just an interesting comparison is Monumental is kind of like Reload to me, to where most of the stuff in Monumental is, seen it a million times. It's not bad, but it's this makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense. And then it has that card system, and you're just this is great.
Right.
Again, the reason I played the whole game is because the card system was really cool, and I wasn't going to, ruin the game by walking away, but I did not have a good time. But Reload, right? It's very stereotypical. This makes sense. Blah blah blah. Ripped off a Fortnite here or did this.
Sure.
And then it has that dice system. It's just this is fascinating. I really like the way the system works. So they both have that kind of thing there. But Monumental with that expansion, I will definitely play it again. Okay. I am hesitant just because I don't have very many negative experiences with games, and that was really bad to me. But I'll try it again. I'll man up. Okay. So. You know what? I'll do this one next. So this one is an example of a game that definitely feels civ-building in a slightly abstract way, and has no exploration in it, which is why I say that, and that's Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders is a hardcore civ-building game. I mean, that is what you're doing, and you feel it. Yes, it's abstracted, but when you get a card, even Seven Wonders Duel, same thing, even more slightly abstracted, right? But when you draft the card Aqueduct, and that allows you to do this, and that's a brown card or whatever, your civilization invented the aqueduct. That is what that's saying and stuff, and that is giving you this benefit. And then later down the road, you can get a different technology. You can get the wheel of water wheel thing and you can get it for free or for cheaper if you already have an aqueduct and stuff, right? And there's there's almost this hidden skill tree thing, with prereqs and stuff, right? And then the whole idea of building the wonder and slowly working on it and putting piece by piece into this wonder, and then it activates and gets you these abilities and stuff like that. But again, the main thing here is the way the set collection and stuff works and the drafting works in Seven Wonders is, while it's abstracted, that is literally you deciding the path of which you're building your civilization and doing it. And there's combat in it with your neighbors, which again is abstracted, but it definitely feels like it's there, right?
Yep.
You are testing your combat strength against your neighbors. And I might not even be building towards combat, but if I see Bob, my neighbor's building a lot of combat, I need to start building my military up just in case he attacks me and stuff like that, right? Like that idea is all there. Seven Wonders does an amazing job of, first of all, not being super fiddly, not being super long, even with a full 7 players, it's not that long.
Okay.
And it really nails the theme there in a backed up view. I will,
it'll be like a
admit to
macro
that.
scale kind of thing.
Right, I guess, yeah. Like, and so if someone said that doesn't feel like a civ building game to me, I'd be like, okay, I can see it. I think it definitely is, but I can see it. I'm not like, you're a moron. Like, if someone said, Sid Meier's Civilization is not a civilization building game, I'd be like, what? Like, what are you talking about? But like with Seven Wonders, I'd be like, okay, I get what you're saying. I don't know. I feel it in every action I take.
Sure.
So that's me.
Okay.
Most of you guys know Seven Wonders, though. I don't know if you had any extra thoughts on Seven Wonders.
No, I haven't played a lot of Seven. I think I played Seven Wonders Duel twice.
Gotcha.
I think I played the normal Seven Wonders maybe once.
Right. And Seven Wonders also has the thing where, so whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game wins, right? Or if you get enough military, you just win.
Yeah.
Because you have military might.
Yeah.
Right? No one
That
can stand
happens.
up against you. Or if you get enough science in the right way, you win because you get a scientific victory. No one can battle your science. Like, so it has that multiple, again,
Path
it's
to
like what you were
victory.
saying earlier, where there's like in Magnus Rex and all these other things, there's like a culture victory, there's a military victory, there's all these things. And Seven Wonders does the same thing, and it just abstracts it a bit. It makes it more
Sure.
streamlined, more simple, less civilization building, but it still feels like it.
Yeah, I'd qualify that as a Civ game. Yeah. Well, so we've pretty much gone through a lot of my. I don't think you can question them as whether they're civilization games or not. Okay.
Well, technically, this one's on the line between.
Sure.
But
I have some of those.
Again, I thought about this one for a while,
Okay.
and I was like, "What makes a Civ game to me?"
Okay.
Right? And I talked about the zoom out and the zoom in. I talked about the from one mini. I talked about the skill tree kind of things. I talked about so the only thing that I think usually matters to me that is not in this game is the era. Right, you're not going through multiple eras.
Okay.
Which, I don't know if I'd use the word necessary there, but huge. I mean,
Sure.
it really feels like, because you can build your civilization. You can take
In one era.
You can take a micro look at a civilization
Sure.
within an era and see how much it did. But it's more interesting if you see how it did over a longer span of time.
Correct.
Right? But yes, I'm going to talk about the big boy for a second.
Okay.
Twilight Imperium 4
Okay.
is a game that has all these things we've talked about.
Sure.
And at first, honestly, I saw some people mentioning it because when I was doing research on this, I kind of looked through my collection, then I looked what people were saying online, and I was like, haven't played those. And then I looked at other ones, and I was like, I don't think that one's, like I was doing that kind of thing. And I came on Twilight Imperium, and I was like, that's one of my favorite games, and I didn't really feel like it was a civilization building game. And then I looked at it and I thought about it, and I even went through the PDF rule book, and I was looking at how the wording is and all that stuff, and then I compared it to what I think a Civ game, and it does all of it. It has the exploration, especially I will say if you have the expansion that adds the exploration tiles on the planets,
Sure.
where it's kind of like Nemesis when you go to a planet, you flip it
over,
over
see
and
what you
stuff,
find.
right?
Yeah.
So that adds a bit, but there is still exploration of planets and conquering the planets. There is this very interesting thing that I like having in Civ games that isn't necessary at all, but it's the political combat, right?
Yeah.
Rather than the military combat. So that's kind of the trademark of Twilight Imperium is a lot of games, when you look at Risk, it's, I can punch you, right? And then he says, yeah, well, I can punch you. And I'm like, right? And in Twilight Imperium, you're like, I don't want to punch you.
Yeah.
I might have to. I
Right.
really don't want to. How can we work out a way?
Just leave for a round, and then you can come back later.
Yeah, exactly. I just
Yeah.
want to hold your planet for about a week.
Yeah.
And then you can come back.
Right, just vacation there for a little while,
Yeah,
and then we're
exactly.
gonna leave.
But I don't know what all you have to say about this, but when you look at the mechanics of Twilight Imperium, you are going through multiple skill trees. It is more streamlined in the
Sure.
4th edition, but you're going through skill trees with your ships, with your tech. You're upgrading your tech over time as you're getting more resources. It is resource management. It's only 2 resources in the game. Again, abstracted out. It's
Sure.
each planet is just, you're getting resources from there. What are the resources?
Resources. The ones you need.
Yeah, exactly. And it has this. You start out as just your planet and your colony, and you're going out and you're getting more units and you're growing this thing and everything. And again, this is one that I mentioned this one last because this is one if someone said that's not a Civ game to me, I would say I totally get that. It took me a while of thinking about it to come around of like
to abstractly think about
it does nail everything I want or at least think is necessary in a Civ game. It might be a weaker one. Yes, there's not multiple eras. I mean, technically there's multiple. They split their eras as far as political whatever it's called. Like every once in a while you have a political agenda that changes things and stuff, right? But that's not an era, you know. The exploration is there. It's not going to feel the same as Sid Meier's, but it does exist, and with the expansion it's better, but that's not on you, you know, to be forced to buy that to do that. But yeah, I don't know what you guys out there and what Bob's going to say to this one. I totally accept criticism for this game. It took me a while. Like I said,
I'd give it criticism. Like I see what you're saying. Like, you know, you're developing your text and whatnot, and you are like starting here and expanding and whatnot. But like, I really don't feel that passage of time that I typically see. And I understand the argument. You know, like, well, maybe it's just like you're looking at that one era,
right?
You know what I mean, and not so much like the passage of them. No. But it's argumentable, you know,
exactly, and that's it's in the middle line for me between the two sections we're going to talk about. And like I said, I agree with you. The biggest problem it has, if it had some kind of era thing, it would instantly become a Civ game for most people, I think, right? If an expansion just added in that your ships can only be so, you know,
capped out until a certain amount of time.
Thing happened, and now you've entered this the uranium system, right? Or until you mine a planet that has a certain resource, now you can start giving those you know, things that, like, if it added those kind of things, which it could pretty simply do, I think it would instantly go from a maybe to a yes, but it is on the maybe line. I'm not going to argue that.
So we move in then to more of the maybe kind of ones?
Sure. You want to intro kind of what we're doing next?
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about games that, like Dan was saying, are borderline. Like, there's some aspects of Civilization that could be argued that they're Civilization type games, but maybe it's missing one or two of the attributes that we would typically put on a Civilization type of game.
Right.
Gaia Project.
I wrote that one down.
Did you?
I've only played it once, though.
Okay.
The main reason I wrote it down is because a lot of people online mentioned this one.
Okay.
And I was like, really? I don't remember. I mean, you're exploring, like you're placing your stuff out. There's a like religion tree thing, like a science tree, or in Terra Mystica.
Terra Mystica, it's religion one, but in Gaia Project, it's actually a tech tree, and that's why I like that one more than Terra Mystica, because it makes more sense to me. Yeah, to unlock all those techs and whatnot, and the space jumping and whatnot, and you're building new civilizations out on different planets, and you know, expanding your horizons, as it were. Yeah, but yeah, so I would think I would consider that one a real borderline push. Like I said, again with like the what you were saying with Twilight Imperium. It doesn't quite have the passage of time essence to it. Yeah, you're developing new text, but it almost feels like you're just developing those texts within a certain era or whatever like that. So
right, exactly, which is where you fall under certain games. You know, like, in, you know, any game that has a skill tree, the passage of time.
That's right.
It's
like, winter theme.
Just because you put a guy here and now you have it, like, how much time passed? It took him 30 minutes to walk there?
It's a long walk.
Okay, Gaia Project, I did have that one written down for you. One that Spencer might mention, I wrote it down just because Spencer might mention it if he was on here. I saw people online mentioning Race for the Galaxy.
Okay.
And this would then be one, if I was being devil's advocate, right, and playing for the side, this would be one that I do think hits a lot of the things. There's no exploration, right? Well, I mean, you are playing more planets, right? So I guess, how'd you get there?
You explored it.
but yeah, I mean, you know, you do start with like your I was gonna say one planet, but you start with like your asymmetric planet thing, and then you have those cards, right? And you are drafting those cards, and you are tableau building. And with it, you are gaining military, you are gaining resources, you know, you are doing all these things and building up the problem that I have with Race for the Galaxy for people, like, I would say I'm leaning towards no on this one. Again, though, I have it in this section because if someone said that's a Civ game to me, I'd be like, I could see it. It's not exactly for me. The problem is, while a lot of the stuff it does falls under the same umbrella that Civilization games do, I just wouldn't call it what you're building is a civilization.
Right.
That word, I feel like, is a misuse, a misnomer, because you are building something.
An empire.
Yeah. Yeah, but, like, is it a civilization? Does it feel like a civilization? I just don't know. Like, if I go back to my list, from one mini, yeah. I mean, that is a purposely vague term. A lot of things start out with that. A deck builder is from one mini.
Any kind of engine builder.
Right.
Yeah.
Which Civilization Games is inherently an engine builder, right?
Yeah.
And then the zoom out, zoom in doesn't exist at all.
Sure.
In Race for the Galaxy, it's just out. There is no, Billy has to go do this. Like, that doesn't exist. It's just, I'm going to play this card that gives me 3 military,
sure.
right? And a yellow resource. But again, if Spencer was like, that's my favorite Civ-themed game I've ever played, I'd be like, okay.
You should play more games.
But okay, I get it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I've got one then that would kind of falls on the line of, yeah, you're kind of building a civilization, but there's not really that passage of time, but you could be looking at it, more zoomed in. Korra. Right?
I didn't even think about this one, and I would say yes.
Yeah, so I mean, like, yes and no. Again, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those arguable ones because you don't have the passage of time, but you are kind of like unlocking new things
Right.
and like exploring, and like there's some combat where you're trying to get resources and whatnot from the
this
cities.
is 100% the Sim City expression that you used earlier. Where This is a one era Civ building game, but you are building your Civ. 100%. That's what you're doing in here. So yeah, I literally forgot about that one. I don't own it. And it's very new, so a lot of people online wouldn't be talking about it and stuff yet. So yeah, completely forgot about that one. I'm glad you remembered, mainly because you own it, I assume.
yeah, exactly. That's pretty much how I do a lot of these lists. I just go upstairs and I'm like, okay,
I go to my BGG,
yeah.
right, and I scroll. But all mine are boxed up right now. But no, Korra is a really good one. It's another slight knock to Korra is that in a lot of Civ building games, again, not always, you tend to start in a weak spot, right? And then you have to kind of come from nothing, right?
Sure.
Started from the bottom, now we're here, right?
Yeah.
And Korra, you
still
just
start
start in
with
the
stuff.
middle of your civilization, and you just want to become better,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So that's a slight thing that makes it not feel as civilization.
Which is why it's on this list and not the earlier list.
But I gotta say, if I had thought of it, I probably would have written in the second half and mentioned it there. And then if you said, "I'll talk about that later," right? We would have seen what happens there. But no, that's a good one. So I'm gonna talk about the big one now.
Okay.
Because
I'm gonna mark it off before you ever say it.
So this game is like top of the charts when people are trying to say, no, that's not a Civ game. Yes, that's a Civ game, and that's Tapestry by Stonemaier Games. It markets itself as a Civ building game, but purposely he markets it as like an abstracted, like, oh, it's gonna give you the same feeling, but it's not really blah blah blah, right? And I gotta say, I think it's a Civ building game.
Yeah.
This was up and down for me. I'm not going to lie. And then, like, literally this morning, I was thinking about it again, getting ready for this, and I looked at it, and you know what really did it for me? Was the freaking Sudoku board. That extra little board.
Okay.
I was like, no, this
you're
nails
building
it.
that there.
This nails it. I mean, not only are you literally building it, yes, but I mean, that, again, he does a really good job of abstracting things, but the theme is there if you want it to be there, right? And when you are building this thing, if you have focused military on your track, and that means you have placed out a lot of your red buildings, you have higher military advantages, more stars, more stuff like that, because you have uncovered them. That's how that works, right? And then also, if you look at your Sudoku city, your city is more militaristic. There are more red buildings in your city than yellow buildings and stuff like that, right? And I really do feel that, again, admittingly, that's my favorite part of the game. I mean, I love Tapestry, but my favorite part by far is that Sudoku board and just manipulating that and building that. It's so fun. I love that thing. It's why I love the game so much, really. Like, if that wasn't in there, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's like a 7, and that thing's in there, I'm like 9.5. Like, I don't know what I gave it, so yes, you have the tech trees abstracted. You have tech trees. You have passage of time. That's what the 4 tracks with your houses are for. They literally show you came from writing on stone to verbal communication to, like, that's what those things are. Again, abstracted. Yes, it has technology that you are buying from that thing and building it up, and some have prereqs and stuff. Like, they're very simple prereqs, but they do exist. And some of it is literally, again, just thematic stuff you don't think about because it's so abstracted. But, like, when you actually think about it, you're like, okay, in order for me to work on, I don't know, in order for me to work on plates, one of my neighbors or me has to at least be high enough on the pottery track, right, to work on that.
Yeah.
So, and that's like, so it's not even that I need to research it, but if I see my neighbor building these things, my civilization is going to be like, that is very interesting technology. And they're going to, Soviets didn't have nukes until the U.S. did, right? They saw us use a nuke and they were like, what is that?
Yeah, we need to do that.
We need to do that, and that's very interesting how that works into there. You could play that game and never notice that is why that's there, but it is there. And I think Jamie does an amazing job of making a game that, for people who don't care, that theme does not exist. And for people that do, it's really strong. And I think he's very good at that.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know if you have any more, because obviously you were on the fence.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can agree with that. That's one of the most contested, and it's very arguable. But I would call it a Civ game. It checks off enough of the boxes for me to where I would call it, a Civ game. The text and whatnot, and I love that aspect where you don't necessarily have to have the technology yourself. As long as somebody close to you is doing it, you can cheat off them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, dude, let's do that. We'll build it taller. Yeah.
Ours will be better.
Yeah. But no, I really enjoy that. Yeah.
That game just, I want to say desperately needs, but it's just subjective to me. The game has had 2 expansions now. The first one was really good. I liked it a lot. The second one I haven't played with yet, but looks awesome with what it adds. The game needs an expansion that just slightly livens up the center of that board. That is by far the worst part of the game, I think.
Oh, you
most
topple
people.
my standing thing.
Yeah. I think the only reason... Here's the problem, I think, with Tapestry with that aspect. This little tiny Sudoku board is super interesting.
Right.
It's just this little board.
Yeah.
That is the giant center of the board. We all have units there, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
It's so boring.
Yeah.
I almost feel like the Sudoku should have been the giant board.
Sure.
And the combat thing should have been this little abstracted thing out, and people wouldn't have cared so much because it's just this little extra thing. But it's the main board.
Yeah.
It takes up most of the board, and nothing ever happens on it.
Yeah, you can explore it for some,
Right,
goods and whatnot.
Yeah, there is exploring, and it's useful and stuff.
Sure.
But I'm just saying, people
it's not as interesting as
people
the other thing.
see it and they're like, "Oh yeah, like a combat zone."
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh, you're knocked me over.
We are playing chess with one piece. Sir. that is what that board is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think if it eventually came up with an expansion that slightly livened up how the pieces worked on that board, you actually had like your main guy and then 2 little military units that you could move around, or scouts that could move around and stuff and move into other people's territory, and then if you had your scout in another person's controlled zone, that got you a benefit from their science or something. If there was something like that just livened up that middle board. I'm an ideas guy. But they just livened up that middle board. Anyway, a little off topic, but again, I think if I look at just an outside view of Tapestry, ignore how much I love it, ignore how much hate it gets with the civilization word and everything. I think it does what a Civ game needs to do for me to call it a Civ game. It's just lighter and more abstract, but I don't think, and less fiddly, and I just don't think a Civ game needs to be heavy, not abstract, and super fiddly. I'm just that's not how I would define it.
Let me check my list again. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So there's a couple other ones that are very sketchy.
Yeah, we're getting more sketchy.
We are, the more and more we go, the sketchier it's going to get. So Endeavor Age of Sail.
Okay, I only played that one once.
Yeah. So you are building culture and whatnot. You are starting in a small area and you're exploring different kind of technology. You can upgrade your guns and whatnot to give you more. So it's very limited as to its civilization types of components, but it was one I saw on a lot of lists that people were saying, yeah, it's a civilization type of game. Arguable, I would say. Does it make my first list? Because I've played it a bunch. Wouldn't make my first list as far as civilization types of games, but it does have some aspects of that with the different types of technologies and whatnot.
Sure.
And so, speaking of technologies, technology track, the board game.
You're going to talk about that one.
I was going to talk
about it.
Yeah.
I thought about it.
Beyond the Sun.
I did not write it down, but I was like, it takes one aspect of a civ-building game and nails it.
It does. Now, and it's not necessarily a civilization unless you're talking about the future of America in 100 years where you're just all corporations.
Right.
And now corporations are countries because that's what we are.
Yep.
And yeah, it just nails the tech tree. And then there's a bunch of exploration too, right? Of the different planets that you go and you're exploring the planets and you're, controlling and colonizing them. The only thing that's really missing is that passage of time for me because it's all kind of happens in the same
Right, and it probably wouldn't be too hard for them to work in because the game is split between 4 eras of text.
Sure.
Right.
So so once you've reached a new one, then or like maybe you got like 2 of the next era, then like something else unlocks and everything.
Right. Exactly.
Which it kind of does because there's those like one common text, and once you've researched enough text, whatever, those unlock. So it's almost like unlocking a new era for everybody. But yeah,
and that's what I'm saying is it would be really easy to. This is a super. Lazy abstract way of saying it, but like once one person has done 2 techs and is able to research a tier 2 tech, that then goes from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age, right? Because someone has reached that point. Like that
fire has been discovered.
Yeah, that'd be very easy to work in. But I can see why they didn't. It's streamlined. You call it Tech Tree Game. It could also be called Streamline the Game. Like that's the whole point. Is everything is follow the line. It leads to this, and it makes perfect sense, right? So
and then one other one that there's a couple other ones on here that I think I'm going to go ahead and pass on. But there's one that it's not out yet, and once I've got it and I've played it a few times, it'll be on my first initial list. We've talked about it. It's by one of my favorite designers, Glenn Drover. Mosaic: A Story of Civilization. It looks
remember when
so
this was on
good.
Kickstarter.
Yes, I cannot wait.
I saw on Kickstarter. I was like, "Well, Bob's back in that."
Yeah, I did too. But yeah, it's not out yet. Hopefully later this year. It should be coming out, if not early next year. Once that gets played, there'll be reviews and all that kind of fun stuff for it because I am excited for it.
You have anything special about what makes it different?
No, I did kind of pull it up on here a little bit. Let's see here. So it is a epic game of Civilization, playable in 2 hours.
Oh, well,
so that's the thing, right?
Game
so
of Civilization. They proved it.
New game by Glenn Drover. Everything you would expect: technologies, wonders, cities, resources, trade goods, golden ages, achievements, governments, leaders. So that pretty much checks off everything. And it looks like it's mainly based around like the Mediterranean and whatnot, like more earlier civilizations. But I cannot wait for that one to come out.
Sure.
It looks really good.
I also had one more, but it was a throwaway one, and I don't even think it's worth mentioning. Like after everything else that we've talked about, I just look at it, I'm just like, you're a disappointment.
Yeah, same. That's why I was like, well, I kind of put them on there, but I was like, I don't need you.
Yeah. I found better.
I have found better. So.
So those are some of the ones that maybe don't exactly hit the mark for us, or some that do hit the mark for us personally, but we understand why they don't for other people, right? So again, in the comment section while you're typing up now you have to hit edit on your first comment because I asked you to mention ones that you liked. Now you have to edit the comment and add other ones. But what are some games from ours listed and also just from out there in the world that people say are or aren't Civ games and you strongly disagree with? Like I'm saying like strongly, not like, oh, I can see it, but like I want an interesting conversation about like, no, Dan, Tapestry is the least feeling Civ game in the world. It is just,
tracks the game.
Yeah, you just move a cube up a track and blah, blah. Yeah, you're right, but you're building a civilization. Yeah, so
it says it right on the box.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm saying it, white chocolate is chocolate. It's just white chocolate.
You had me, then you lost me.
This is how definitions work, people. Chocolate is in its name. Therefore, it's chocolate. Is it chocolate from the cocoa bean? No,
and not to get too political, though, because like North Korea says it's a democratic state. It's not a democracy. It's not.
Right.
Just because it's in the name.
Right, but it is
shepherd's
a
pie,
state.
not real shepherds.
Right, but it is a democratic state.
Is it though?
No, but by name it is. But then, if you actually go with the definition of democracy, you're like, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
I'm just saying that's how names work, right? I am a Daniel.
Well, there's other names that you could be called.
I actually am. I'm only Daniel
Dan.
on this show.
Yeah.
You guys will never know my real name.
Yeah.
But yeah. So again, anything that you guys want to say about civilization building games, I can't wait to play more, honestly.
Yeah,
I like
it's one of my favorite
games.
I like genres.
Yeah, I like feeling fulfilled, right? And like seeing an end result and knowing what you started from, right? I tend to really like manual labor jobs in real life because you see a mess and then, after a few hours, it's an organized,
progress.
clean, you see the progress and you know what you accomplished. And Civ games are one of the best for that kind of thing because that's the entire point of the ideas. You started with this and look at all you have accomplished.
Started from the bottom, now we're
we
here.
saw, we conquered,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
History. But Yeah. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. You got any little final things you want to say?
No. Well, maybe you should check out our friends at the Board Game Mechanics. They got a
Wow.
podcast. It's
That's a
pretty
good
okay.
idea.
Yeah, it's pretty okay.
Yeah. We also have a bunch of sister channels. We have Miniature
do.
Rundown. We have Pokemon Rundown. We
Yeah.
have Magic the Gathering Rundown.
Yeah.
There was even some talks of a Yu-Gi-Oh! Rundown eventually. I mean, we'll see. We're trying to
We'll see.
we're going to be on Monopoly.
The Rundown Monopoly.
Yeah.
Oh, Monopoly
Oh,
Rundown.
My goodness, our
Oh.
own board game.
Yeah.
But yeah, check out all that stuff. I'm going to try to have links or snaps and stuff to some stuff we've talked about that we've covered on the channel before.
Mm-hmm.
So links in the description if there's anything like that. But I think the most interesting part of this is going to be the comment section and
Yeah,
see what's
hope
going
so.
on down there. But again, guys, thanks for joining us today. Hope that you guys kind of like talking about Civ games too, because it's a very large genre with a very few games that I've played. So anyway, from the Board Game Rundown, I've been Dan,
That was Bob.
and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for checking out the Board Game Rundown. If you like what you saw, like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Share our videos on social media and spread the word. We publish new content weekly, including reviews, unboxing, and Let's Plays. And as always, thanks for watching.